All right, ladies and gentlemen, definitely welcome you to the 50 Educators from 50 States. And today I have the opportunity to have a conversation with Mr. Jeremy Harris. And he is running for school board, Denver School Board District 4. And I just happened to see his information on Facebook. And, you run across things several times. And when it comes to your eyes, several times, you just stop and we were able to connect. So tonight, what we're going to do is just go through his campaign. What is his stance towards this particular seat in the Denver Public School District, District 4? Again, welcome. Let me first welcome you to the
Yeah.
to the podcast show. Let me do
Thank
that
you for
first. But
having me.
absolutely. So I'm going to start out by asking you what inspired you to run for the Denver School Board, and how has your personal and professional background prepared you for this role?
Sure. So, what inspired me is simple. Our schools are not working the way they should, and our kids can't wait any longer. As a father, a community leader, and someone who has served families through my business, I am a mortician and I own the Harris Funeral Directors in Aurora, Colorado. Of course, I've seen firsthand the struggles of our students and our teachers that they face every day. I've talked to people in my community. I've heard from parents who feel shut out. I've seen classrooms without the structure or the support that they need. And I've talked to teachers who are burned out first, and secondly, they are underpaid, which is a big issue and one of the key components of my platform. They still show up because they care. I'm running because I believe in accountability, I believe in discipline, and I believe in academic excellence. I'm running because our children deserve schools that prepare them for life and not politics. And I'm running because District 4 deserves a voice that understands the community and listens to family and leads with a common sense approach, as I call it. This is personal to me, and I'm ready to help and lead what we call a new era in education.
Absolutely. Yeah. And those several things, again, we'll talk about how viewers can go to your website and see and also to go to your website and then follow up on the things that we're discussing tonight. Again, when you talk about the new era, school teachers, I'm a school teacher, so I definitely understand what
Thank you.
what educators have to face when they go into the classrooms, no matter where they are in the United States. One of the goals of this platform that I have with the Transforming Lives 50 Educators from 50 States is to find
Yeah.
out, hey, what's happening across our world, in particularly the United States, what's happening. I thought it was very unique to have this conversation from a school board standpoint. So the
Sure.
next question is, what are the top three priorities you plan to address if elected, and how do you intend to implement these changes in these areas?
Sure, as we just mentioned, teacher compensation is so important. The problem is DPS is losing talented educators because they are underpaid, as I mentioned, and overworked. My plan would be simply to conduct a budget audit to identify administrative waste. We also want to reallocate funds directly into teacher salaries and retention incentives. Visiting the schools in my district, we're not seeing a lot of black and brown teachers. And I think that matters to have someone who looks like you or represents, your culture in the classroom. So definitely want to retain and attract teachers of color, black and brown. Also, we want to partner with local businesses and nonprofits to explore alternative funding sources. We know that there's a lot going on. I'll
Right,
just say with the top dog
right,
in
right,
office,
right.
who I'm sure we didn't vote for. So we have to be prepared and know kind of what to do and how will we receive funding if the Department of Education, of course, closes and is dismantled. So that's the teachers portion of my platform. Secondly, would be school safety and discipline. The problem with that is that classrooms are disrupted and discipline policies are pretty much failing students and teachers in
Mhm.
so many ways. My plan would be to restore clear district wide discipline standards, Also, I want to reintroduce trained school resource officers and just making sure that we have that accountability that we need with those resource officers. One of the things in Denver Public Schools is the current board voted to remove school resource officers. Those are police officers that are employed into the school to serve as a liaison between students and any possible threats or issues that may occur within the schools. The school board removed those resource officers, and I want to say 2 years ago there was a incident at one of the high schools where two administrators was injured,
Hmm.
and the student had brought a gun to school. Many of the parents in the community, they want school resource officers back in our schools. My current opponent, the incumbent, she feels that we should not have school resource officers in our schools, but the community has said otherwise. That's one of the main things that kind of separates me from the current incumbent now, the talks around safety. Another thing that I would want to see is more behavior interventionists in high need schools that support students and reduce classroom disruptions. I don't want to see no child taken out of the classroom, right? Children deserves to be in the classroom, but also we know that a disruptive child can cause chaos in the classroom. They can hinder other students from learning, and they can also this be a disruption from the teacher teaching the class.
Correct.
So I think we have to find a happy medium of what we are doing with those students that's causing the disruption in the classroom. I am for in school suspension that kind of isolates the child, but also keeps the child engaged with the activities and the work that is needed to be done as well. So I believe that a behavior interventionist could come into the classroom and kind of work with those disruptive students, because teachers are already overwhelmed with so much that the last thing that they need to be worried about is a child that is not behaving properly in their class. The current board has pretty much stripped teachers of the rights when it comes to behavior. And the new era in education is about we are restoring discipline within the schools and within the classrooms. Thirdly, academic excellence. 40% of the students in Denver are not reading on grade level. Okay, that's a problem. 31% of those kids can't do math on grade level. That is a problem. So we definitely want to refocus fundamental skills, reading, of course, writing, math, and critical thinking skills, and also skills that will prepare them for the real world. I've met high schoolers that don't know how to write a check. They do not know how to endorse a check, to deposit it into their bank accounts.
Yeah.
So along with those foundational skills, we also want to make sure that we are preparing students for the real world. It's cliche. I don't want to say cliche. What people often say, kids are our future. They're the future. They're the future. We have to prepare them for the
Correct.
future as well, outside of school. And my third point, of course, we want to promote career and technical training paths, just to let students know college is not the only way, right?
Yep.
There's trade schools, there's military, there's other avenues to be successful in life without saying, hey, I got to go to college. So we want to make sure that we are making these pathways clear for students. So if a child wants to go to a four-year university, then we need to create a university path for that child so they are receiving the skills that they need to be
Yeah.
successful on the university path. If they want to go a technical route, making sure that we partner with some of the local businesses to offer apprenticeships
Right.
so they can get real hands-on training for the field that they will explore in the future.
And these are, when you talk about transforming a school or transforming a
Yeah.
school district, you have to look at these avenues in order to make that significant change. It's not one, you have these stakeholders. One is going to be your parents,
Sure.
and you got to be able to listen to them and understand everybody's not going to take that pathway to university. And that's early
Right.
on. third year of me in education, I taught a class called technical math, and this class
Okay.
was math in the technical sense. And it was
Yeah.
like I'm used to normal algebra one and this pre-algebra, but I learned a
Yeah.
lot from that class and those students that are in there. Number one, I can say that now. I couldn't say it then. I had a kid in there that knew how to change oil. I didn't. Like, and he knew that, hey, this is my track. I'm gonna graduate from high
Right.
school and I'm going to go and I'm going to get into my father's business that he had. And it was a automotive business service.
Okay.
And he knew that he was going to go in that direction. And at first, I bucked it to say, man, you need to go to college. But that class taught me that it's okay. And they're going to be very successful taking that track. To hear
Oh
some of
yeah.
these priorities that you have that are important, and school safety is number one on the list because if a child is not safe, let me back up. If the teacher doesn't feel safe, the
There you go.
employees don't feel safe, it's not an environment that is conducive for learning, to learning, for learning.
It's not.
So it's good to hear those things that are important to the life of a school district when we're talking about looking at transforming and looking at successful paths.
Sure.
Absolutely. I've heard from you about your plan to engage teachers and parents. You talked about connecting with businesses and apprenticeship. You've talked about hearing parents' concerns about matters that they take to heart, and one is being safety.
Yes.
I want to move to this next question is just equity in
Sure.
education is a significant concern. And you touched on it earlier because we're all at a loss right now on
Yeah.
the Department of Education. We understand that
Yes.
states hold a responsibility and they have a say, but there's some funding that plays a part. And we don't necessarily have to step into that part of it, but what strategies would you employ to address the disparities in resources and opportunities among schools in District 4? I know you touched on a couple of things,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Sure.
could we talk about that?
Yeah, great question. So we have to realize that equity isn't about lowering standards. It's about making sure every student has a real opportunity to succeed, regardless of their background, their neighborhood, or zip code. Even right here in District 4, that means I have to tackle disparities head on. Okay? Fund schools based on student needs and not just enrollment. One of the issues is DPS is experiencing decline in enrollment. School closures and things like that have been topics as well. I believe that it starts with the budget, right? We have to kind of cut the top. A lot of the monies with the Denver Public School budget is spent on the central office, top 120, $140,000 jobs, but we're not putting the resources where the resources need to go. Okay. So equity is about making sure those who need the resources are getting the resources. Okay. So as I mentioned, we want to push for a budget that prioritize, of course, the Title One schools,
Right.
our ELL programs, and special education services. We have to find the monies to fund those programs. We also want to ensure that schools that are serving high needs populations of students that need counselors, interventionists, academics, support staff, that they have those resources. Of course, improving access to high quality instruction. We want to expand access to experienced teachers and advanced courseworks in those underserved schools.
Right.
As I mentioned, with the literacy rates being low and the math rates being low, we want to invest into literacy and math interventionists, right? For
Mhm.
the students that are behind and that are unfortunately failing. And then we also just want to make sure that we bring back career and technical education to not just some parts of the district, but all parts. Because some of the CTE programs, and that's career technical education, most of those places are outside of the district. And transportation is another issue that comes
Right.
in with equity. So it's one thing to have great programs. It's another thing if students cannot get or have access to those programs because of Transportation barriers. Another part of equity, of course, we have a high population of English language learners, and not only with the students, but with the parents. So we want to increase bilingual staff to help, of course, translate to the community. Because if there's a child who English is their second language, they are getting material in English, but they're taking that material home to the parents who don't speak English. So there's a barrier there, and that is a part of equity to make sure that those students, those whose demographics have the access to the resources that they need.
That
And how we do that, right? We got to hold the district accountable. We have to require public reporting on schools by schools, push for the data, transparency. That's how we count, we identify those disparities across the districts. And of course, just empowering parents and students to help shape and improve our plans. It's nothing that I can do as one person, but as the collective, this is something that we can get done.
and that's important. And I don't necessarily have the data to point out in every state, but what you just explained is a major challenge in our schools across the United States.
Yes,
So you don't want a student that English is their second language sitting in a classroom and receiving instruction in English. And I get it. Of course, it depends on your testing platform in your state. We know they're going to test in English, but you have to look at how you differentiate your instruction. So if they're sitting in there and it's in English and they never get to a point where it can turn over to where
yeah,
now they have to have the information translated and have a plan laid out in order for them to get to a point where they understand the information. And that takes a team, that takes a system being put in place to make sure that happens. No, that's an important part of education right now. And if you're not,
yes,
you're letting students just stay in class and not giving them a high quality education.
education. I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah. And my next question. So one of the things I focus on as I support schools is this. I look at first year teachers because typically
Sure.
either either they leave that first year or they get out before year three. And I've been there. I
Yeah.
thought I was going to get out year three, but it was someone that came in that kind of supported me and made sure that I got the necessary tools I needed. And I say this to say, when I look at research concerning first year teachers and student and teacher retention, one of the things
Yeah.
is one of the reasons why they leave is because of lack of support.
Yes.
That's the number one thing. They would go to a district that they're receiving better support in for less money just because they're getting support. Here's my question. Let me get to my
Sure.
question. How do you plan to support and retain high quality teachers,
Okay.
especially in schools facing the greatest challenge within District 4?
Great question. Of course, people want to go where the money is. Okay.
Yep.
Of course, first, we want to increase compensation and incentives. Okay. We want to push for a competitive base pay and targeted bonuses for teachers in those high need schools. One of the ideas I had was to create a retention stipends for educators who stay multiple years in
Mm,
underserved communities, as you just mentioned. And then also, we want to offer housing and transportation stipends to making teachers want to join the district. I was reading, I can't remember where I was reading, but it was another district, of course, in another state that offered housing stipends. And I thought that would be a great incentive to add to help retain teachers. Secondly, I would say reduce the burnout through real classroom support. Okay.
mm.
For paraprofessionals, behavior interventionists, as we spoke about, and also support staff to make sure these teachers have what they need to be successful in their classrooms. And also just to ensure that they have that administrative backup. I hear a lot about most of the issues also comes from the other assignments that they have to complete that comes from the administrative, and sometimes it can be overbearing
Right.
and take away from their job and their passion of teaching. We also want to invest in professional growth, of course, fund leadership pathways for strong teachers to mentor other teachers. So pairing those first year teachers with some of your veteran teachers just to give them someone that they can go to, a mentor to help them in their educational development as well. And then, of course, expanded access to high quality professional development that is tied to real classroom needs. Mental health services. We talk about mental health in schools, but as far as students, but I believe that we should also think about mental health when it comes to our teachers, just to make sure that our teachers have that mental health support that they need because they deal with so much. And just also just to improve the school culture and the morale of the school, build a culture of respect, recognition in every school. Of course, involve teachers in policy making. When it comes to being on the school board, I will want to include the teachers in some of the decisions and policy making and votes that we take as a board, just to make sure and know that our teachers first know that we support them. Our teachers know that we value them by paying them a livable wage, and
Hmm.
just know that we have our teachers' backs. I think that will go a long way with, of course, retaining and recruiting high quality teachers.
Absolutely. This is definitely a informative interview where,
Sure.
those that are in District 4, you can hear those priorities that Mr. Harris has for the district moving forward and how and what he brings to the board if elected and what he can do and the knowledge base that he brings to the board. Mr. Harris, I'm going to step to the side. I'm going to, and
Sure.
my background is I'm a coach, former football coach, and I
Okay.
always do a 2 minute warning. So this is our two
Okay.
minute warning where I give you the opportunity. I'm going to move to the side, and you got 1 minute to just close this out on your advice to educators, parents, or whatever you would like to say. But I'm going to step
Sure.
out the way. You have it.
Sure. Thank you again. Again, my name is Jeremy Harris. I'm running for Denver Public Schools, District 4, and I'll be honored to have your support. Together, we can shift the district and usher in a new era in education. Of course, we believe strong teachers stay where they feel respected and supported and empowered. As a board member, I will make sure that the experience every teacher has in District 4 is one that will make them stay in our wonderful district. Listening to our parents, we have to make sure that we are putting our parents first. And as a parent of a DPS third grader and PTA committee chair, communications chair rather, I know how important it is to make sure that parents that their voice are heard in the decision making. And as far as our students, I will be able and will make sure that I visit all the schools in the district, not just in District 4, but as a collective, all the schools that resides in Denver Public Schools, because that's where the problem and the issues lies is within the classroom. So I will be the board member that you will see in the schools constantly. I will walk the halls constantly. I will be in the cafeteria talking to students to making sure that their needs are met. And so again, I will be honored to have your support this November for District 4 of the Denver Public School Board.
All right, guys. So you've heard Mr. Harris and his campaign and what he stands for and what he believes in. It's one thing to campaign for something that you're trying to get into the seat as, but it's another thing to have a product in the system. And that speaks volumes. Again, guys, thank you so much for viewing this. You can reach out. Mr. Harris, how can they find out more and
Sure.
more about you? How can they contact you?
Yes. So you can visit our campaign. It is Harris 4, the number 4, DPS.org. Harris, the number 4, DPS.org. From the website, you can, if you stay in the district or live in Denver, of course, you can volunteer. We would love to have you come and join a new era in education. And also, you'll be able to donate directly there from the website. So we do appreciate all of you all.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. You've heard the information. This concludes our session. You all have a great one.